What are the country's top CEOs doing to build extraordinary teams and cultures who thrive even during a pandemic? You're about to take a deep dive into the minds of wildly successful C-suite leaders who are evolving the way that we work in the 21st century. Welcome to this special edition of How to Be Mesmerizing. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we have another extraordinary guest with us for our Mesmerizing CEO Secrets special series here. Matthew Billingsley is with us. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's such an honor. So you are co-founder of Visceral. And so you're a designer, an author, a speaker. You've got 18 years of UX design and branding experience. And then in 2006, you and your buddy, Jay Buys, created Visceral, which is which your mission is to really recognize and empower businesses that do good in the world, right? So his work with mission-driven organizations has been recognized by Step Magazine, How Magazine, This Good World, Nonprofit World, the San Diego Business Journal, and many more. And he also co-authored that book with Jay, a book called Repurpose, Be Good at What You Do and Do Something Good, that details their first decade of building and sustaining a socially conscious B corporation. So, and Matthew's just an all-around cool guy, and Visceral is a pretty extraordinary company. So let's jump in, Matthew. So your company, Visceral, is a branding and digital design agency for social visionaries who are out to change the world. So can you explain to our listeners what a social visionary is and how you and Jay decided to exclusively promote social visionaries and nonprofits?
Yeah, absolutely. So my definition, and this might be true for a lot of people, a social visionary is just someone with, who has the means or has the wants and desires to want to make good in the world. And as hokey as that sounds, there's a lot of people out there who are really, steadfast in those pursuits. And we decided to, align ourselves to people like that. It's just much more rewarding work for what we do, and, website design development, brand creation. Why not do it for those people who want to seek a higher purpose in the work that they're doing? That's what moves us. That's what gets us out of bed. So, rather than, we could probably, we're probably leaving a lot of, maybe some money on the table. So, some of those things may not be as lucrative. And we can get into that a little bit later too. But, it's more rewarding for us, to do that. So people with, who have steadfast, very focused missions and what they're trying to do in the work that they're doing, we want to act as their voice, as their, amplify what they're doing and their messaging, to make sure that they're successful.
That's nice. So you've told me before when we've chatted that you don't take projects just because they have lucrative budgets, and that there has to be another incentive to take on the project, which you were kind of alluding to. So, so how has turning down certain clients with big budgets actually caused you to become more successful?
Well, I feel like it's, this is a very saturated market. A lot of creative agencies are, out here kind of like us and, do what we do. But I feel like, focusing on those types of clients, those types of opportunities really give us an edge. And, we made the decision early on to, kind of shape our business on value instead of volume, where it's not about taking, it's not about taking the most, contracts or opportunities in the calendar year, because we, and again, get into this a little bit later on, but, that's something that we learned early on that we were going through in previous lives and previous companies. And there's no quicker way to get burnout set in your team members by just taking on anything that comes to the door. So it really taught us that being selective, being very thoughtful, being very insightful, and, thinking deeply about the work that we're doing and who we're going to select to work with, partner with, it really goes a long way to, having a very invested team that, wants to work with you and just be more invested in the process as a whole and the success of the company. It's we turn down a lot of work a year. A lot of it because we're small by design, and we want to be very nimble. We want to be very flexible. We don't want to grow to be, this agency, this firm that, with, 20, 30, 40, 50 people with all these levels and layers of management. We have a very flat leadership style. And, that's also by design. We want to stay small. It keeps the team more insular. It's more collaborative. It's more communicative. Those are all the things that, that build a successful company, in my view. And that starts with being very selective and being incredibly selective about the work that comes to the door and what you say yes to and what you're going to be committed to working on, for projects that would take, 4 to, 9, sometimes 12 months a year. You're going to be with those clients and those projects for a long time. So you better make the right choice. And, there's times in the past where we didn't, and we, learned from that. So that also led to us, being much more selective and very, very thoughtful in the choice that we make about the projects that we do take.
Yeah, that you said that before starting Visceral, you'd worked in large corporations and small boutiques, and you got a ton of education, from every angle from doing that. But you said that you didn't like not having a say, maybe in some of the creative processes or the jobs that you took, or you put in so many hours, for a deadline driven project that maybe only lasted 3 weeks, and then it was over and it didn't feel very fulfilling. So is that from those experiences what caused you to decide to be very intentional about keeping your business more small and effective?
100%. Absolutely. And, to be clear, like you said, the education that, I received from that experience, those experiences prior to starting Visceral, that's invaluable. I wouldn't be in the position I am in today without, going through those experiences. And, some of the, friends I still keep in contact from those areas, from those other jobs, and, the connections that we made there, those were, those helped start Visceral, those connections. So, I owe a lot of gratitude to the people who, I worked with along those ways and shaped my experiences. But, a lot of that was, we learned, and, as much as we learned how to run a business, that was a lot of that was on the fly, and what we wanted to do as a creative agency and what we wanted to, achieve. A lot of that, we learned a lot about what to avoid and what we didn't want, which was just as valuable information to have. So, I'm eternally grateful for those experiences. And it's, that education, just can't be replicated. So yeah, man, it's just, and it's not so much with the creative process itself from a design perspective. I felt very included and felt very, like my voice mattered. I had a lot of influence in some of those, opportunities, but just the layering of how some of those companies were structured. I knew that I had reached my ceiling in some of those places, very early. And, once I realized that, okay, I'm not going to have influence on how I want and the type of work that I want to do, and how, fulfilling that work is, my voice is only going to travel so far. So once I realized that, I knew it was time to, go in a different direction and, try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So you've said before that you want to be on the side of good at the end of the day, which I love that. So how do you measure when you're taking on new clients? How do you measure what is good?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we don't really have any, to be perfectly honest, we don't have any like formal, measuring sticks by, the beneficiary of the clients that we serve. We don't track that. In a very indirect way, we know that we're doing good because the word of mouth gets around. So, we work for a foundation, large or small, family foundation or whatever it is. If we get the seal of approval from them, to come back to us in terms of like, in the way of like referred work or, other leads, then we know we're doing something right. We know that what we did to, help that organization, they got over a hump, or they were able to achieve what they were seeking to do. And we helped them with that. So they're going to pass it on. So while we don't have any sort of, formal, mechanism for tracking, or customer satisfaction or anything formal like that, it's all just in building, relationships and checking with them. And we work with a lot of our clients, after we launch projects, for, for various durations, a couple of months to, years after. We've had clients that have been with us for, 10, 11 plus years now. So, we know that something's working, and, we also know that they're spreading the word around, and, making sure that we're out there and, telling others, their peers about us. So we understand that something's working, and, we're making a difference in their day-to-day work. And so that's how we translate, and that's how we know that we're doing good, by getting that information back.
Yeah. Yeah. You've said that, you don't prioritize money over people or purpose or the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's pretty key to our development as well. Like I said before, we leave a lot of projects on the table sometimes. And, we, rather than try to shoehorn in, a couple of different, some more opportunities just for the, to increase the bottom line, decided to let's just be more impactful. Let's take the projects that are going to, at the end of the day, make us feel rewarded, make us feel like our work is fulfilling. And, the people that chose to work here, they also agree with that. And it's something that's like an ethos that we've, cultivated and, instilled within everybody, and everybody believes in it. We would love to make more money. We're a for-profit company. Who doesn't? But, when it's all said and done, we don't want to burn the team out and just taking on projects solely for the money. That's just going to, you're going to lose a lot of trust in the team that you've built over time if you continue to do that. Every once in a while, there may be one where we say, okay, this ticks all the boxes, we'll go after it, or we'll take it. But, that's very rare. And it's got to tick off a box. It's got to check the box that they have to have some sort of, value, mission-driven cause within that for us to even consider it. If that's not a part of it, then, we're not even going to consider it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So I like how you said that everybody believes in the mission. Mm-hmm. So, because you're definitely, you work on, or you help purpose-driven brands, right? So how did you attract a team that really buys into that mission? Was it just hiring and hoping, or do you have, is it in your hiring process, or is it something that you develop with the people that are there with you? How'd you get the buy-in from everybody?
Yeah, so it took time, to be honest. When we decided to make a pivot into the type of work that we're doing currently, we made that decision probably about a decade ago, maybe 8, 9, 10 years or so now. But we were a much different team back then. We were shaped differently, we were structured differently. We were much younger, of course, individually, but also in our progression as a company, we were a different team back then when we made that decision. So, in doing so, we kind of just hired as we needed to, people who we didn't really place a premium on values and mission and vision as a company back then as we did today. So I think it was really shaped with the team. It wasn't something that, Jay and I or the other team members, decided, that we're just going to plant a stake in the ground and go forward. We had to have that buy-in. So once we made that decision, we started hiring, and it was easier to, share with people what that mission was, what we wanted to do, what our purpose was. So I'm not sure if I'm answering that correctly, but it just kind of shaped organically, right? Where, we didn't really hire people from nonprofits or who did a lot of work in that space. We just needed good people who were very creative, who were very driven, had an entrepreneurial spirit, as it were. And, once we shaped our values, it just kind of made, much more sense, and just kind of fell in line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a very honest answer, because companies and businesses go through growth phases, right? And most companies and especially entrepreneurs don't start off with having a clear set of values and a mission statement and stuff like that. We know we want to do good in the world. We want to be profitable. But we really don't have a set of core values that we map out and things like that. That begins to happen as you grow and you become more successful and you recognize what matters to you and what doesn't, and what makes you feel good at the end of the day, and what's going to cause you to work really hard. Because if it's just chasing more money all the time, that gets old. You can burn out from chasing that. Yeah. So you're right. And then when you're hiring people, and in the beginning, you're just trying to find talent and people that show up and they do a good job. And then over time, you help enroll them into the mission, or you help them co-create what the values are.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And so
I'm still not, and I'm, co-owner, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just kind of got a train of thought going. But, Jay and I, we co-own the company, but we're also still the people that, a client will speak with to, start the project. We're not, we're not in some, gilded office somewhere. You see my background, right? This is my office. So we're still the ones, we're also doing the work as well. So, we're still shoulder to shoulder with, people on our team getting the work done as well. So, it's being that employee, like being that person who's still, that employee mindset where I'm still doing the work. That also shapes it a lot too. So I can see from, people who choose to work here, I see from their point of view too, where it's like, I don't want to just do money, do work that's just bottom line chasing, to increase profits. Yeah, more profits are great, but there has to be something else. Like you said, there has to be something else beyond that to get motivated, because it's if you're just working to make money and, when does it stop? You're always going to be chasing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Where, I'm a capitalist, and I'm sure you are, and, we are in a capitalist country, that is what it is. That pursuit's never going to stop, but you have to have other drivers that, that make you want to do the work that you're doing. And that fulfillment is incredibly important. And our team members see that. And, once they know that, once they have a clear idea, understanding of what we're trying to achieve, it makes them, it's not even buying it. It's just like they're a part of the team, and it's like they're just, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. So how do you make saving the world more profitable so that more people do it? Because I love how you had said that before. You love representing the unsung heroes and helping them to expand their reach. So, and the idea that, if you make these nonprofits and these people who are doing good in the world more successful, then they can have a bigger impact. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? How do you make saving the world more profitable?
Yeah. So, people are drawn to, organizations, companies, brands, for what they represent, right? I feel that. These people, these organizations, brands, whatever you want to call it, in some form, these groups, foster relationships, and the people only become attached to, the most memorable ones. So what you're really evoking here is like a feeling, right? When you talk about like, brands or becoming more profitable with a purpose. So it's really aligning, from the start with, understanding your vision, your mission, your values, your personality, all these things that, speak authentically to who you are as a company or an organization. So, the most successful ones, can speak to that very well. But if you can also align that to purpose and some sort of mission that, is designed to do greater in the world, to do, more good in the world, why would you not? And if that's still not affecting, your bottom line, still not affecting your profit margin at the end of the year, you can have it all. Cite a company like Peloton, right? They are a B Corp, one of the pioneers in it, as we are, fellow B Corp, proud to say that we're in line with those guys. But, they're a $1 billion corporation, and, they make money year over year. And part of it is the culture that they've developed over the years, over the decades. Just the things that they value and that they represent with, just making a more eco-friendly planet in the projects, and how they create their products, how they give back, some of the initiatives that they have. So, there's a way to marry the two, to marry purpose with profit. We, as a small company, as a small agency, we're still trying to figure that, we're still trying to get there. I don't think we're not trying to be $1 billion corporation by any stretch, but, there's other ways that, there's ways to do it. There's ways to do it without, losing your soul, as it were. You don't have to just chase the almighty dollar. Peloton is a good one to look at. Patagonia. I'm thinking Peloton is Patagonia. I'm sorry. I just spat off all that, but it's Patagonia is the company I was thinking about. But yeah, there's ways to do it. There's other, Ben and Jerry's is another one that's doing it. They're one that, they have a very deeply, they have like a very deep rooted mission and, social issues. And they're still making money. There's a way to do it. And you have to cultivate, it's fostering the relationships, it's fostering, it's communicating effectively, not only in how you present it, but your actions, whatever you present your product, your message, you can't just be, it's not just imaging, it's you have to back it up with your actions. How are you conducting your corporation, your company, organization, with values first, with purpose first? That's something that we're, aspiring to do ourselves, but we look to people who have done it as inspiration and, these, thoughtful, these guiding lights to always continue to look at and to be driven by.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's great to look at others who are doing what we want to do and be inspired by them. And you're right, you have to have authenticity. You've got to walk the talk. You can't just have all these great ideals, because especially in our world today, especially right now, with some of the people who are in this cancel culture kind of movement, if you say one thing and your actions show something else, they're going to get you. They're going to call you out, in a big way. And so it's more important than ever to build that trust with your customers.
And trust has to be earned. You're not going to get it. You have to build that reputation up with any relationship. You have to build up that trust, and more so when you're a public facing agency as we are. Working with the type of clients that we do, very respected names in the nonprofit world, in the philanthropic world. They have reputations to uphold. It's our job to help them maintain that when they invest in us, to complete a project, to complete an initiative. So, that trust has to be built up. It has to be earned.
For sure. You represent some very, well-known nonprofits. And so, they're really trusting you to be able to deliver their message, and to get it out in a big way. And so you got to have that trust. Now, I'm a big proponent of questions. I love asking power questions, because the quality of your questions determine the quality of your life. And so through some of our conversations, you've had some questions that you have proposed that I really enjoyed. So here's one of them. You often will ask when you're sitting down with a potential client or a client that you've decided to work with, and you'll say, what is your end goal? So tell me a little bit about that. It might seem obvious sometimes, start with the end in mind, but when you're asking, what is your end goal? What are you listening for?
Sure. So someone smarter than me a long time ago, when we were starting out, when we started to get more work in this space and, make a concerted effort and decision to, pivot into, this type of work, I got a little bit of a lesson in, about like how, just the broad general, nonprofit sort of, entity, what that really means. And, that person told me that the goal of a nonprofit is not to be in business for 50, 60, 70 years. If you're a nonprofit, if your mission is well defined and what you're working for is laser focused, and you have methods to, work towards it, to help alleviate whatever project or ills or whatever societal things you're trying to correct. The goal is to get out of business. as a nonprofit, you should be working to achieve that goal. Once that goal is met, why are you trying to exist? What are you trying to do beyond that? So, as a nonprofit, and again, I'm using the term the nonprofit very broadly. It really includes a lot of different types of organizations. But, once you achieve what you're after, are you still going to stay around? Are you going to shift the mission to something else now? Is it, what are you really after here? So, when we're speaking with potential clients, we never try to work and speak directly to like just the opportunity or the project, whatever it may be, a website redesign, some branding, some re-strategizing around the organization. We're really working with the organization as a whole. We want to know the ins and outs of, who are you? How did you get started? What are you trying to do? How are you bringing people in to help you with your mission? That matters, because again, you mentioned authenticity earlier, and that's something that drives us. That's, we try to live by that. So we want to be sure that the people who are, engaging us are also, invested in that authenticity. Because it's so easy, like you said, it's so easy for people to spot that a mile away. So if you're true to what you're trying to achieve, are you really in it for the money, or are you really trying to eradicate, what you said you're going after? So that's a very important question. It's something that, I would hope a lot of other organizations out there who claim, or nonprofits would look at as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you kind of already answered the second question, that you often ask is, are you making a measurable impact, and how are you measuring that? Mm-hmm. And I mean, those are really great questions, because it probably becomes easier to promote companies when you know what their end goal is, when you know what their impact has been and how they're measuring that. It just allows you to be able to achieve the goals easier. I will tell you, Matthew, that I love your answer about the nonprofits with the goal of not being in business for 100 years. I've never heard that before. I think that's great. It's very clever. You're like, I was a Rotarian for many years, and the goal was always to eradicate polio. And then I was at the meetings where they said, we've done it, and 99.5%, of polio has been wiped off this planet, and then of course we started having a couple of cases here and there, but they pretty much completed that. And I haven't been to a Rotary meeting in some time, but after that, it was all about what we had done. And it wasn't about shifting the mission, because the Rotarians aren't going anywhere. So it's like, well, what's the new mission? It can't just be about polio anymore. Right. What are we going to do instead? And so I think that's brilliant that your goal is, it's kind of the same. I'll tell you real quick. There was an old, I don't know if it was a joke or not. I thought they were joking, but when I went to school for psychology, I was going to be a group psychotherapist. That's what I wanted to do with my life. And so I went a different direction, luckily. But I remember them saying that, you get 30 really good paying clients, and then you retire 30 years later with those same 30 clients. Right. And that was the idea, that they're in psychotherapy their whole life, you don't have to worry about, building a giant practice. And I thought, if you spend 30 years for someone and they still need to come to you, you shouldn't be in practice.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a crazy idea.
It really is. Like, if you're trying to achieve a goal, it's what's next? We've done it. Is there something else we can do to help others to, in their pursuits? So yeah, it's, otherwise, I love the, the Rotary story about, like, coming back to have like a celebratory, hey, we did it. Like, oh, okay, we did it. What's next? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they have that answer or not. They might need your help. So yeah. All right. Very good. So, you have a culture that where the cornerstones of your culture are openness, psychological safety, honesty. How were you able to develop that safe space where people can really, they don't have to hold back. They can share their ideas. They know they're going to be heard. What are some things that you do or that Jay does that helps everybody to feel like they have that kind of safety to be able to express themselves?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the unwritten rules that, we said early on, unsaid rules, I should say, was, we started out as a partnership. It was just two people, right? And then we just slowly built, the company up, through that, adding somebody else and shaping it, adding and adding. But one of the things that we decided early on was in this partnership, you know, we don't make unilateral decisions, right? It's not one person with, the all-encompassing, my word is the law type of thing. Mm-hmm. Everything is a discussion. Now, I know that might rub some entrepreneurs or some business owners, make them cringe, but it's attributed to a lot of our success. We get consensus from others and whatever decision that we make. Now, all that said, of course, somebody has to make the decision, and we have to, we can't just talk and convene around subjects, or else we'll never get anything done. But getting that input, getting that influence, and hearing what other people on our team have to say about the type of work that we do, things that could be more, I guess, smaller issues of the day or whatever, like reviewing our employee handbook and what policies we want to have updated, or, that we want to, revise or add to it. We make sure that people understand that, understand that before we make, those decisions that will have large scale impacts and ripple effects throughout the company, as small as we are, it matters. A lot of that also is we're very transparent internally with our finances, our financials, basically. We have quarterly reviews every quarter about where do we stand as a company, how much money we have in the bank. We don't share salaries or anything like that amongst others, of course, but where we are in the bank and our savings and our checking, what we're projected to make this quarter, where we're going to end out at the end of the year, forecasting that. We share all that. We have an intranet that Jay built just in his free time. He's a giant development nerd. He'd actually be a fun person to talk to about some more technical things like that. But he built our intranet in a weekend just for fun. And one of the things, one reason why he wanted to do that was to show our financials on a day-to-day basis, that anybody, anytime can log in and see where we are. So we're very open with, our financial statement, because again, these are people's livelihoods. These are people who have chosen to work here, and we owe them that information. We owe them that honesty. It's something else that I would have loved to see in, my previous lives, some of the places I've worked in the past. And that's everyone's prerogative. Business leaders don't have to do that if they don't want to, but we felt that investment, that earning of trust, goes a long way with, again, just being open, being very honest. When we're, beyond the operations part, when we're engaging in new opportunities, just on the more, creative and technical side, we have a process in place that took, a lot of years to shape, a lot of years to, kind of hone the craft. So there's a lot of people, on our team that have influenced that. We have very open, free flowing sessions about, ways that we can shape our processes. It's not so rigid where it's like, this is the Bible. We have to do it. You have to go from step, A all the way to G, and it's got to be done in succession. We have a very open process where, if there's a flaw, if there's something that can be done, it's not just coming from, leadership to make those changes. If there's an issue that needs to be had or improvements that can be made, that can come from anyone. We like to empower people who work here, to shape the culture, to shape the environment, the working environment, so it's beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I didn't realize you had that much transparency going on as well. It really does build that level of trust and honesty, and helps people know exactly where they're at, instead of everybody making up their own story. Right. I also love how you said that, you're very collaborative in talking about ideas. Eventually somebody has to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. but I learned early on when I was working with companies that people support what they co-create. If I'm a part of helping something to have happen, put something together, then I'm going to support it and I'm going to rally for it afterwards, behind people's backs, because I was a part of creating it. And so even if I was working with a company and they had a couple thousand employees, well, you can't, if you were trying to rewrite your values or explain what your values look like in action with specific behaviors, which I think is a really important part of building your values, is what does that look like in action? And to give little examples so that people have examples of what it looks like to be honest, or what it looks like to be a giver, or what it looks like to, to have compassion. We would always, instead of just the executive team or the leadership team, we'd always pull people who we felt exemplified those values from the employees. Right. So that you had lots of people that were like team leaders, or they weren't team leaders. They didn't have the title, but they were amazing. They live our values. And so we'd always invite them in to these sessions where we redefine the values. And they were so touched, so appreciative. They did an amazing job. The team trust increased. So did the feedback and the honesty, which was very good feedback, difficult to hear sometimes, but, but you've got to have those difficult conversations if you really want to have a powerful culture. And it was just awesome. And then they would go back and they would support it and they would rally. And so you want that happening throughout the company. And right. So I love that approach that you have.
I should also say too that, while that approach, what you just said too, and how our approach is, that may be unique to a lot of people, but I think we also benefit from being a very small team too. I think if we were, 30, 40 people or more, I mean, you could still have that level of transparency, but it's harder to, really get, as many people to the table as possible to hear their voices, because again, with all those voices, it's how much harder to cut through the noise, right? So it's a lot to really see like what's working and who we should be listening to and why, and make those decisions that way. But when you have a very small team as we do, it is a luxury, to have that ability. So we're not that is a loss on us, that because we're small, we're able to do that. But it's one of those things that it's one of those benefits that it's things that we can take advantage of. Use that, use the size of our team to our advantage, and that's one of the ways we can.
That's right. Small companies are still mighty companies. Absolutely. Powerful companies, that create a lot of impact. So if you have a team under 40 or a team under 10, you can still make a huge impact in the world. And sometimes, the opposite can be true. If you have a smaller team and you've got a lot of strong personalities, it can be a little more challenging sometimes to get on the same page. Right. So what we did with larger companies is we created brand ambassadors, right? And so we would have brand ambassadors, and they would exemplify the message, and they would tell stories and send out stories to hundreds or thousands of employees, pointing out when somebody was, living the values, right? And they would tell stories about how they took care of a supplier, how they took care of a customer, how they took care of a fellow employee or someone from a different department. And we would highlight those stories regularly and just keep it going and keep it in front of everybody. And because you're right, sometimes when you have a lot of employees, it can be a little challenging, but it's still, I think it's even more essential, because then, if you don't have everybody on the same page, woo.
That's when the distrust and any of that sort of the dragging down the dreaded corporate culture, some of those the bad stigma can set in at that point. So that's good. That's a really good point. It's even more essential at that point.
Yeah. So another thing that I thought you was really great that you've done, you and Jay have done, is you pay 100% for the healthcare of your people. And even though that definitely will cut into your bottom line, you say it's worth it. Why is that?
It keeps, talented people happy. It keeps people that, you've built a company with, who have chosen to work, with you, for you. It keeps them happy. It keeps them invested. It was something that, a couple of years ago, and I will give my partner Jay all the credit for this. This was his idea, and one that as soon as he said it, it made perfect sense. And it was easy. It was easy to get that going. So we progressed into it. So a couple of years ago, when we got our first started offering healthcare to our team members, maybe 5-6 years ago, we just did it a very traditional way. We'll pay a percentage or what have you, and just kind of go through it that way. But then we decided, how cool would it be to pay for all of it? And it was one of those things where, at first it was a little bit of sticker shock. Like, we knew that would be very expensive in our healthcare system in this country. I'm not going to go on a diatribe here. It's not the time for it, but there's a lot to be desired for sure. So let's help alleviate some of that pressure by, offering 100% of it. So we kind of stepped into it. We kind of, stepped it up a little bit. So 1 year is 50%. The next year we did 70, 80, until we got to 100 about maybe a year or 2 years ago. I want to say 2 years ago now. So, it's one of those things where, we weren't naive. We weren't just, aimlessly like, let's do it. We kept a pretty tight eye on finances to make sure that we could do it, and still do every year. But it's not failed us yet. And again, it's talent retention, man. That's one of it. We care about the people who work here. Again, not to sound too hokey or anything like that, but with a small team, again, goes back to that. We're very collaborative and we work tightly together, even though we're remote. A lot of people who, the people who have been here, who still work here, have been here for a while. I think our most recent addition has now been with us for, I want to say 16 months or so. Turnover is very low in our history. And I think that's a lot of, part of it. That's one of the reasons why. Is one of those perks. That's something that, it's also something that we know that stands us apart from others too. So, should we ever make the decision, to grow, to get, 12 people or beyond, or if anything like that changes, we know that's going to be something that we're going to get, top talent and, really have that as a sticking point, as a recruitment tool. But it's also the right thing to do. Just, again, just where we are in this country with how things are set up with healthcare, it really is the right thing to do. And we're very proud that we're able to do it.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that with your remote teams, because you have a pretty much almost 100% remote team workforce, which is where we're moving these days because of COVID. So, in addition to the healthcare and stuff like that, how else do you keep a remote workforce engaged?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll kind of start with, I guess I can partly answer that with, some of the secret sauce that we have, little secret DNA there. Visceral, we've always been remote. We started out remote. It's steeped in our DNA. I'll give you a really quick story. When Jay and I were both working in the DC area, we started it there, out there, but, we started it officially in May of 2006, I believe, when we kind of, it became official. So, my wife and I discovered we were pregnant that same month. And we had always talked, my wife and I always talked about coming back here if and when we ever did want to start to have a family. And so that came the same month that we started Visceral. So I moved back here to Ohio, the Ohio area, Central Ohio, that August, 3 months after we started Visceral. And so that was one of those things where, I spoke with Jay and had a conversation. And I was like, look, man, here's the thing. I know we just started. We're not even off the ground yet, but here's what I'm thinking of doing. And here's what I want to do it, blah, blah, blah. He didn't blink. He was like, go do it. We'll make it work. I have every confidence in the world that we'll make it work. And we did. And we've always been a remote company. Being in the same time zone certainly helps, but, being 500 miles away, not being in the same room day in and day out, that was a challenge. But, I think that really gave us a leg up, that situation, like that choice to still keep it going, not being in the same, room, the same office. We, we really weren't considered, we didn't consider ourselves to be visionaries then, but, 15 years later, that's how, like you said, how things are progressing. But because we were able to do it, that's how we started. We just built that up and just kept doing it. I think there's no real other secret to it, man, outside of, just communication, using tools like Slack, that's kind of giving way to email or Google Hangout, Zoom now. It's an everyday thing. It's not the same thing as being in a collaborative in-office setting. You do miss a lot of that. And we get together, as a full team a couple times a year to go out to the office and, plan and meet and, and hang out. So there is still that. We are able to have that. But I think, again, it goes back to our size and just the, collaborative nature that we try to cultivate and transparency. It's easy to have, to get on Zoom and, be very productive, have, very, tight agendas for all of our meetings and itineraries. So it feels like that when we get on a meeting, it's not aimless. We're here to meet. We're all busy. We're going to take 45 minutes to an hour, and here's the things that we're going to do. Send that agenda out ahead of time, so everybody gets an idea of where we're going to take this discussion. Get these things done, and we're off. And then we don't want to have meetings to have meetings. Like it, we used to do back in the day in the old school, different lives or what have you. But you have to be more, thoughtful in how you are, communicating remotely, because again, it's you don't want to micromanage or anything like that, but you have to be very attentive and very thoughtful in how you're conducting communications.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have a program just on mesmerizing meetings, talking about how to have laser focused, effective meetings, or how to know if you really need a meeting or not. You can just skip it, and send a little review or a note out to everybody, and how to keep everybody on track so it's worth it, so you don't have death by meetings.
Never that.
Yeah, very smart. So you've got two more questions for you. So you wrote a book with Jay called Repurpose, Be Good at What You Do and Do Something Good. What did you want that book to convey? What was the main message or point of that book?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that was a book that we, he and I, along with his wife, who's a writer and author, we wrote that together. And that was just, we were coming up on our, 9-year anniversary a couple of years ago. And, we had the idea like, wouldn't it be fun just to, write a book, just to talk about, some of the things. We're going to do like just a bigger blog post or something. We want to do something to commemorate, being in business for 10 years. That was like a big thing to us, just two guys who had helped, cultivated this team and, built a company up over 10 years in a small agency. That was a big deal to us. Not a lot of, we understand that not a lot of, companies that do what we do last that long. So we want to do something that was kind of fun just to commemorate it and, just reflect a little bit. That was really the only purpose of it. We just want to do something that, almost like a little keepsake. And because I always want to write a book and never had. And same with him. This is as good of an opportunity as ever to try something like that. And so, it was just a fun thing to do. It's like a little just pet project. We did it very cheaply. It was something that, it wasn't considered a moneymaker for us, but, it was something to kind of give to friends, family, clients. It's like, hey, we did this thing. Maybe you'll like it, whatever. We just had fun doing it. That was really the only purpose, just to commemorate the 10 years and, just to share some of the lessons that we learned, along the way. And felt it would be a good thing just to get out there and, kind of get off our chest and just put it out there and, something we can look back on like, yeah, we wrote a book, something kind of small, but that was really the only purpose of it, really, just to kind of have fun with it, to do something that was not, to kind of break up the monotony of, day-to-day, inner workings of, running and doing operating a business and, and doing client work. We want to do something else a little bit different from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah. It's hard writing a book. So congratulations on actually getting it done. So, and then last question, Matthew, how can people learn more about you and Jay and what you do at Visceral?
Sure. Yeah, it's simple. Just visceral.com is the website. That's more about us, more about the team. You can see the clients that we help, that we partner with. All of our socials are there. It talks about, a lot of information about our values and what motivates us. This is visceral.com is the website.
Where did you come up with the name Visceral?
Yeah, it was really, weird. Just Jay and I were just kind of brainstorming just names, right? Just writing down stuff and just writing down names and, just thinking of everything that we were to create a company, what would we call it, right? And there was, I think I'm going to take credit for this. I actually came up with the name Visceral, right? It was just, the word. I just love the word. I just like the word. I like what it represented, like the definition of, just this guttural feeling about, this instinctive feeling about a thing, anything good or bad. It's just an instinct, like a visceral reaction to something. And I just always like that phrase. I just like the word. And I just thought it sounded cool, really. And then, it didn't take much to, convince Jay. And, we were off and running and started registering Visceral and where we could, and business, licenses and trying to figure out the URL and everything. But no real, I wish I had a more insightful, impactful.
Well, I like that. Yeah, I like the idea of the gut feeling, and your instincts and trusting and all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, what you said earlier is that, people are going to kind of sum you up by their gut feeling, what they, how they feel about you.
Instant reactions, good or bad, that's just your instant visceral instinct. And we just always like that, like the, just what that represented. It's like, that fits us. And so we didn't really know how then, because that's before we really were who we are. Obviously, we were just, just very, very early. So I feel like we've grown into it. The name fits us.
That's awesome. Matthew Billingsley. Matthew, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for all the insights and making the time to be on the show today. It was great.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for reaching out and inviting me. It was a lot of fun. It's great to speak with you also, Tim. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's Tim. You ever wonder why so many talented, hardworking entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with inconsistent self-belief or high stress or procrastination or self-sabotage? Well, the answer may surprise you, and the solution is already inside of you. I've been searching for the answers to this for decades, and I found them, and I put it into a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind, Mental Secrets for Accelerating Success. And because you're a listener, I want to give you a free VIP copy. Head over to PowerMindsetProgram.com. That's PowerMindsetProgram.com and grab your copy today.